This is going to be a big one. We're going to talk about how the nature of war influences its purpose and means. So first of all, we're going to just refresh ourselves about the objects or the objectives of war. Clausewitz says that those can vary infinitely. We can have an infinite variety for the objects or the reasons or the objectives for war. Once you go to war, if you win, if you're victorious, the country should be occupied. This is something, again, Machiavelli also talks about in The Prince. The country should be occupied so the opponent can't raise new forces. You want to pay very close attention to that. For example, if you were doing a hostile takeover of a company or of an organization or some community group or something like that, this is something that Machiavelli talks about a lot, that you have to colonize, that you have to be in residence to ensure that your opponent or subjects loyal to your opponent can't raise new forces against you. You have to be in residence and you have to colonize. The country should be occupied. War or conflict in general is never, 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 ever over until the opponent's will to fight has been broken. The opposition, your opponents and their allies must be made to sue or ask for peace. You don't offer peace, you have to fight them and drill them back until they're forced to ask for peace, to sue for peace. The population must be forced to submit. Clausewitz talks about two different types of war. Those are theoretical war and actual war. In theoretical war, he talks about total destruction. That's really talking about war between opponents of unequal strength. He says that would be absurd. There's no reasonable justification for war between opponents of unequal strength. However, in actual war, real life situations where you have this probability and possibility and chance, a real war, an actual war in real life can be fought by opponents of differing or unequal strengths. There are a couple of reasons that you can sue for peace or grounds for peace in a war between opponents of unequal strength. Those are the improbability of victory and unacceptable losses. So if you're fighting an opponent who's much stronger than you, who has many more resources than you, the two ways that you can get him to most easily sue for peace are to make victory as improbable as possible for him. That's what happened in the Vietnam War. They just drug it out until the possibility of victory seemed so improbable that that the U.S. just left. Or unacceptable costs. Clausewitz said that an analysis of the probabilities might lead to peace. If you have small motives and small tensions for war, the small prospect of defeat might be enough to make somebody submit. Also, if one side believes this is probable, they should work on bringing about this probability and seeking total defeat. So, if you think it's possible, if there are small motives and small tensions for war, if you don't have an overwhelming and compelling reason to go to war, and you think that you can create the prospect of defeat, you should work on that rather than pursuing the actual defeat itself. Clausewitz also talks to us about the value of political objectives and how they're determined by different sacrifices in magnitude and duration. So we measure the value of political objectives by how much sacrifice we have to make, the magnitude, the greatness of the sacrifice, and the duration, how long we have to sacrifice. Again, I could speak at length. I don't want to because I want to get to the next bit of information about how General Giap in the Vietnam War really sort of outplayed General Westmoreland using this very same type of strategy, making the magnitude and the duration of the sacrifice that the U.S. Army had to make unworth that sacrifice especially when the reasons, the motives, the justification for going to war in the first place were so slight. This domino effect theory. Vietnam had never attacked the U.S. The U.S. didn't have an overwhelming and compelling emotional reason to be at war with Vietnam. So, all General Giap had to do was increase the magnitude and increase the duration of the sacrifice that the U.S. ground forces had to make, and eventually it became too much. Clausewitz tells us that if the effort is greater than the objective, if we have to make a greater effort, if that effort is not proportional or equal to the objective that we're trying to reach, then that objective has to be abandoned.